wrote about Troy. It might be good for Greek theater, but for fact,
What we're looking at is medieval history right here.
I think AI is going to change the way we look at our history, and I think it's happening. It's happening right now.
it's unsettling for anybody who's been studying so long and then to find out that it's fraud. But then the bigger question is, what are they covering up and why?
Hey folks, welcome back to History Hacked. It's been a while since our last episode, and we're back in the saddle and ready to dive in. Today we're continuing the conversation with our good friend and new chronology enthusiast, JB SLEAR. Now, if you're asking yourself, what on earth is the new chronology? Well, you're in for a treat. Today, JB is going to focus on one fascinating case, which is the Battle of Troy and the Trojan War. So with the help of AI and a little bit of common sense, we'll take a fresh look at when and where this legendary conflict really took place, and you might be surprised by what we uncover. We hope you enjoy this conversation as much as we did.
Could we just start with, I wanted to ask you, like, why do you think the Trojan War and this story of Troy is such an important event? What attracted you to this particular event and how it relates to flamenco and new chronology?
Right off the bat, it's all Fomenko's fault for introducing everything and challenging the idea of what we call history. Troy is just a very small version of what we know as history, pushed way back into the BCs, when argumentatively it could be brought forward into the Crusades. And that's what Fomenko has done. After reading what he had said, I did a little digging, and with Grok and AI, anybody and everybody can pretty much do what we're doing and start challenging and tearing apart these ideas. Homer wrote about Troy. A wonderful story, great. It might be good for Greek theater, but for fact, well, that's why we're here. I want to basically show you what I've learned using Grok on this. And if you take a look at this map, this is the map of Troy.
Now, JB, before we get into this too much, I want to kind of reset for people that are just joining us and that aren't familiar with the whole flamenco story here. We don't have to go too deep into it, but essentially flamenco's premise is that what we think is 6,000 some years of ancient history is really the result of a chronologist's error or manipulation. And what we're looking at is medieval history right here. And the names, the locations, all this has been altered mostly by the Catholic Church in the 1600s. And what flamenco has done is he used statistical analysis, math, probability theory, and he's sort of saying, no, this is all from the Middle Ages here. And with Troy, I think, what's the official date at Troy? It's like 1200 BC or something, or 1300 BC?
1200 to 3000.
Yeah.
It's all fable.
Yeah, and I think what he does, what flamenco says about this is it was the first world war pretty much in our known recorded history. And it was actually not this Troy that we think it is, but it was actually Constantinople in it was, I believe, the 1204 Crusade. Right. Constantinople was the event that created Troy. So with that, I just want to get everybody up to speed on that. So yeah, what did you find?
Great idea. Okay, well, this is Troy, so claimed. Over 100 and some odd years ago, they have spent, I don't know how many millions of dollars to prove it. Academia.
Is this the Turkish government, or are these independent?
Let's just say Batavius and Scaliger.
Okay.
And, the Catholic Church, or those that hold the printing press. Once that was done, then, fable can be pushed everywhere as fact. But they claim that this is Troy. And if you look at the bottom right of my map, it shows 500 foot in the distance there. And it's, you can extend this out and maybe just lay it out as 2,000 feet.
That's tiny.
And, it's pretty tight. It's,
Is this the eastern bank of the Black Sea we're at? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And where are we in relation to Constantinople and Crimea? I would love to, because I'm not familiar. I know they claim something's Troy, but I have not deep dived into this.
Okay, Constantinople is
Is that the Azov Sea up to the top? Okay.
I think it's right here.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
I don't quote me on it because I haven't looked at it like that. I'm so focused on Troy. And now you're gonna have, oh, there we go, Troy
Troy
Museum.
Museum, yeah. Get the
Well,
tourists in there. Another historical amusement park.
yep, yep, exactly. We can go on for days with what Fomenko has taught. But okay, so the ideal city of Troy, right here. It's beautiful, it's wonderful, it's been excavated. They spent money on it to prove to us that they spent money on it. It's supposed to be real. But when we start asking questions about its reality, we come up with the challenges. Now, I'm going to go back to Grok real quick. And this is what my starting went. Where is the fabled city of Troy? And they gave me a great breakdown. Heinrich Schliemann, right here, 1300 to 1180 BC. And yeah, UNESCO, World Heritage Site.
So the UN, they all say this is Troy.
Don't you dare challenge that.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot of letters behind that proof. Okay, so the question is, how many soldiers protected Troy during the fabled battle? 50,000 defenders.
That is a pretty full baseball stadium
Yeah,
of soldiers, huh?
yeah. And then you ask the questions, how many royalty was inside Troy? I guess royalty and its courts. Okay, no head count. 50 sons, 12 daughters, spouses. Okay, so not a whole lot of leadership. How many farmers would it take, and how many acres of land would be needed to supply foods and meats to the soldiers?
Below is realistic evidence-based estimate, not Homer's poetic exaggeration, but 5,000 defenders, maximum plausible garrison for the Bronze Age, based on archaeology and logistics. Homer's 50,000 is impossible. The citadel was only 5 acres, and the town, lower town, 75 acres total.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So Grok is basically saying that can't be real, so we're going to give you numbers to make Troy real. Ultimately they talked about 50,000 people, and you can't have a small city fighting 10 years or so without having a reason to protect a large city.
that's right. It was a 10-year siege that Troy was under.
Right. Let us use the 50,000. Okay, let us use the 50,000 soldiers and the farming needs. Below is a scaled up estimate. Okay, so 1 kilogram a day, 50 kilograms, 50,000. And it's a rather big background
And
here.
18,000 tons of grain.
5 liters a day of water, olive oil, meats.
Yeah, where was all this water coming from?
It must be from the gods. Well, that was the other part of what Fomenko had brought up about Troy and the horse, right?
Mm-hmm.
The wooden horse. And it was actually, or I still think the aqueduct idea is absolutely spot on.
Yeah, so I guess the word horse, equine or equa, was for horse, and aqua was for water.
Right.
And I believe one of the many duplicates of Troy is the Gothic War in Naples. Manco says that was just a retelling of Troy, and I think in that war, correct me if I'm wrong, but they stopped the river flow and went through the aqueduct to invade the city on that one.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's that plug. So, that was on that aqueduct, I think, that Fomenko had brought out. They chiseled out the plug. They had a small group of soldiers chisel out the plug on the aqueduct, got into the city that way, opened up the gates, and then the horde flooded in.
Yeah.
Look at this. We need a total of 219,800 acres and 2,200 farms.
Wow.
There's that. Then, okay, you brought up the thing about water. how big of a water system would Troy need to take care of the 50,000, 60,000 people now, okay? I'm thinking it had to be a lot more because you have to have infrastructure. When it comes to military, you have to have people that can build the weapons. You
Hmm.
need bows and arrows, and so you had to have people to make more arrows constantly. So we can keep adding more and more people. But right now, with just 60,000 people, that cute little land of Troy um, must be skyscrapers. That's
Hmm.
yeah, that might work. Look at this, 438,000 meters of water annually to take care of that many people. So even just using this, the challenge of Troy, what is declared Troy, falls apart.
This seems like an open wound in their story. I don't know how they're trying to pass off Troy. Do
Well,
they provide what evidence do they provide? I know they believe they found Priam's gold or something with that, but why is this Troy and not just some small settlement according to their narrative?
oh, because it was such a fabled story. You had to believe it, and you got UNESCO saying it's real.
Hmm.
You've had 100 years of people not challenging using logistics, and that's what the wonderful thing about this new technology. Even over the recent years from our last interview, we didn't have AI,
Hmm.
and now we can turn around and dissect things a lot better. So I expect more people to look into what Fememco has done, utilizing AI and helping to support or tear apart what he's discovered.
Yeah, listen, and I suggest if people want to do their own research, not to bring up flamenco's name or try to, you have to try to trick the AI because I've noticed, because I've gone and down the rabbit hole with Grok on this, and it seems like it's been trained on two flamenco hit pieces
Yep.
because the language got really strange when you go into flamenco with it, and it throws out this bias language like every other sentence was cherry picking. He cherry picks that and cherry pick, and that is the language that you hear often in these criticisms of flamenco cherry picking.
Well, this is actually it's interesting because I mean I think we'll talk about how AI is essentially like piercing the veil here on a huge level across all facets of not just our history but science, literature, like so many fields of mainstream academia are, I think, scrambling right now to shape a narrative that you know, either diminishes AI or says, oh, well, it's hallucinating, or they're coming up with ways of trying to counter this, but it's not working. I mean, I think, and that's what I was going to ask, how do you think AI is going to change the way we look at our history? And I think it's happening. It's happening right now, and it's happening so fast that um, even if they try to train or biases into the AI, it's not working. I don't think it's working at all. And it's exciting because now we actually, instead of saying, "Hey, go check out these 7 volumes of this Russian mathematician," and that's such a massive amount of reading, and now you have a tool that can digest all that and actually parse it out and actually expose the flaws in the whole story. So
I think it's great. And I agree, AI is working. It's just not working for those who've been telling us what they believe is real. And unfortunately, they've been schooled to believe what they have and then to challenge what they know. It is disrupting. You know, it's unsettling for anybody who's been studying so long, been teaching so long, and then to find out that it's fraud. But
mhm.
then the bigger question is, what are they covering up and why? And I'm seeing bits and pieces, the buildings, et cetera, that we see every day that are virtually hundreds of years old. everywhere across the planet with the same style design, with
Mm.
dome on the top, with the ether, what do you call that, antenna. So there is an in my belief, there is an advanced civilization. It's dotted everywhere. Academia has been successful in covering it up for these past several hundred years. But now I think you're right. It is falling apart, and I keep looking for old books. I've got the Encyclopedia Britannica 1775, and
Mm.
it's got different stories of what we know as history compared to what we have now. I can't give you any descriptors of it now. I virtually have over 1,000 books, and I don't have the library shelves up, so I box everything. So I can't find it, those things and go through them again. But I do know that they spoke of different subjects in different ways.
Yeah, and to go back to that version of the Encyclopedia Britannica, 1775, or
Yeah.
might be fuzzy on the year, but that was before Pugaczev's rebellion in 1775. And if you look at the list of the nations of the world in that book, Encyclopedia Britannica, there you have Tartary, you have independent Tartary,
Right.
Chinese Tartary,
Musco
Petite Tartary,
Muscovite.
and Muscovite Tartary as the largest nation by landmass, with a capital city in Tobolsk. Um, I've put that out on Twitter, and people are like, "Oh, that's not a country. That's not a country." But why does it have a capital city?
It's the United States of Tartaria.
Yes,
You
and
know,
also I fed a map into Grok where it showed Russia as a separate nation from Muscovy, and I'm like, why are these two separate nations? And Grok's explanation was that this was an anachronistic map that was inaccurate, that these were never two separate nations. And I'm like, well, we got quite a few maps showing them they are.
is this you guys? Did you post this? It's like a feed to Grok to set up Grok to read Flamenco or to follow.
I might have tweeted that. We did not create it though, but it's like I am flamenco bot or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I use it, and it helps out.
Yeah. And one thing we've been doing in History Hacked is if you go to our homepage and you go look at our bookmark tweet that we have at the top of the page, you'll see a link to our YouTube videos and all that. But if you go into the comments in there, I have linked maybe about 15 different summaries where I fed chapters of flamenco because, it's very dense subject matter.
Yes,
And, you can't expect everybody to want to read it. So it just distills it down to the key points from like a beginner's introduction to the new chronology to advanced topics like who was Kublai Khan, why we think that Tartaria was Rome, stuff, debunking England, debunking China. And so it's a great resource that I just want to point out to anybody listening to this. If they want to know more, go to the history_hacked X page, go to our bookmarks tweet at the top, watch the videos. Please, this is our third conversation with JB. And so we have two other epic podcasts. I think one of them was broken up in two parts, and you could see those all on there. But also go into the replies and start reading those Grok summaries because it's really eye-opening and it does distill it to the claims and the facts that Flamenco provides, which, in his book series, which you have all 8 of them, it's
yeah.
spread out over thousands and thousands of pages, and most people aren't just going to dig into that.
And I encourage people, if you're going to buy the books, do so one by one. Because then you can afford it, and every page is a wow.
Yeah, and book one is just a great primer for people. It's we kind of think, and when we were pitching this as the TV show when we first met you, JB, the goal was to dissect what we believe first, right? Before you could get into Tartaria and before you get into the more outrageous aspects of this. And that book does a really good job of dissecting why our consensual history is full of holes and contradictions.
Exactly. And now AI is a confirmation to what Fememco has done. And using those 40 different scientific approaches that he did with his team, we're going to be plowing through academia like it wasn't there. And, I don't know what's going to be on the other side of it, but I'm excited. Our past is everything for our future.
Yeah.
So once we find out what our past was really like, I mean, did we have, I'm really wondering about the blimps now. Did we have air travel in 1400? I know they wrote articles or they wrote stories about not blimps, but the hot air balloons and
Mhm.
such. But did we have something like that?
Well, I find it interesting that a lot of the stuff showed up in the 1850s or the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, which if you time it out, we have this sort of fall of Tartary in 1775. Then I feel like we go into sort of mini dark mini. It's a mini area around the time of the Napoleonic Wars, the War of 1812, and there was a whole host of other wars around the South and Central America, China, famines.
Right?
If you go into the local history of any culture, you get a localized famine and even with Rome, there's a great article that was written in 1817 about a traveler in Rome that said, I was just there a few years ago. It was great, but now it's all buried and destroyed and it's filled with Tartars, it says.
Yeah, yeah. And very few people walking around.
Yeah, and he was lamenting that just a few years ago that was not the case. And so what happened in Rome, and you could see all throughout the 1800s that Forum and a lot of the buildings surrounding it, not just the ancient ones, but a lot of the medieval ones, were buried.
Did you post that on
You
your?
know, it wasn't original on my post, but I do share it quite a bit.
Okay, because I'm certain I read it because
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And we're
fascinating.
gonna we're gonna kind of post it we're gonna put it up on the screen for everybody. But go read that article about Rome. And what's great about our X page is that you could kind of just go on there and go to the top search bar and just type in whatever you're kind of curious about. And chances are we posted about it and you can kind of learn, like whether it's America or Troy or Greece or China. Like I think we have over 10,000 posts already, so we've covered quite a bit.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you have watched your viewership grow.
Thank you for tweeting it. And a big part of that was Cliff High retweeting our stuff,
Oh man,
which was huge for us.
yeah, Cliff he's a wonder. He's the
Yeah.
wonder of the ages, a great man.
Yeah, so we're forever grateful for that. And yeah, it is kind of growing. We've been seeing some fluctuations. I guess people have been complaining about the algorithm lately, and I've had a few people reach out to me through the Twitter or through X saying that I used to see your stuff, now I don't see it anymore. So there is
Yeah.
kind of a balance.
Now, Elon, he talked about Grokpedia,
Hmm.
right? And so he was boasting about that, and there's only like 380,000 articles in there. So he's going to be pumping it up, and I imagine in several months from now we'll be able to see Tartaria in those. I think Elon is really out there to get the truth out, but how do I don't know the technology how to open up a system like Wikipedia with truth in it and then pop in all the data. And I guess it's going to be an AI that's going to rethink things as well. I haven't used it yet because I know they need time. I got a friend who's he's like an Elonaholic. He follows everything Elon Musk does, Tesla, the batteries, everything. And he's the one that told me about the amount of articles or subjects in Grokpedia and how it's going to take more time. Um, yeah, he's my way to Grok.
I will give Wikipedia its due because Wikipedia Commons is actually a great resource that I use quite a bit. And it just has the archive of a lot of old stuff. And if you just go into and say, you look at these cities or these regions that are prominent in the flamenco reconstruction, and you start looking at images, paintings, etchings from that era, it is a wealth of stuff, especially from these old Russian towns that you
Oh,
could see all
yeah.
these old chronicles. One thing I was going on a deep dive last night was the Siberian Khan. I forget his name, but everywhere he's depicted as a giant.
Yeah, yeah. I like the old structures that they have, the knockdown buildings
Hmm.
that just so happen to have rebarb in
Yeah, what is that?
it. That's way before our time,
Hmm.
and they had rebar. So they had a refining facility, they had mining, they had this technology hundreds, if not maybe 600, 700, 800 years ago. They had this technology. And we can't build buildings like they did.
No, they're still there, and I see lots of like Spidey sense Tartaria buildings still around. These, but if you look at sort of up the Volga and all that, where these buildings were, you see a certain construction style, and you see it's red brick. A lot of these are crumbling, so you could see the rebar inside of it, which is how do you get this rebar through these brick
Right. And
structures
then
like that.
the polymer, and then the different levels of polymer, like in the statues with all that, you got lace
Hmm.
that, that can't be chiseled,
Yeah, these deep crevices, and
right?
also I've been posting them as well. But you'll have a beautiful sculpture, just insane. But you look at sort of the edges of it, and there's these weird like melted holes
Yeah,
that
yeah.
no way that artist would put that there.
And that pyramid of Giza, right?
Hmm.
Made of brick. Did you see?
That is interesting. That one is throwing me for a loop because I was on the board with concrete, but I'm like brick and concrete. Like how much of it is that?
Well, that kid that climbed that, I'm thankful that he destroyed, I guess he brought two hard drives with him and destroyed one in front of the police and he took the other one with him. I don't know how he did it,
Smart.
but I'm thankful that he showed that top part because that's brick, folks. That's brick, BRICK, this size like we use now.
Yeah, that's what strikes me about all this is that it's the same, it's the ubiquitous red brick, same proportions, same color. And it seems silly to have a conspiracy involving red bricks,
Oh,
but here
yeah.
we are.
Yeah. I love this, guys. I
Yeah.
do. Oh, this is what all I have for Troy.
Okay. I was kind of doing a little research on Troy, and there's a few things I was thought was interesting was the three Brutuses that show up throughout history. Are you familiar? So you have one Brutus. So if you go into the ancient history or the histories that that English history is based on, you're familiar with the Caesars and all that stuff. But before that, I think it's Ninnius, or I'm terrible with the names on it. But one of the old British histories claims that from several accounts that Britain was founded by a Brutus, a guy named Brutus from Troy, not the Roman Brutus. So you have a Trojan Brutus, right? And
Right.
that's what actually the name Britain comes from, was this Brutus that invaded in a story very similar to the Caesar campaign, showed up with a bunch of ships from Troy and subdued the native population and set up shop in Britain. Then you have a second Brutus, Ennius from the Trojan Tale. He sails across to Italy, and
Make Venice. Make Venice.
yes, the Republic was founded by like one of his like second or third descendants, also named Brutus. Then you also have the Caesar Brutus, which is this protege that was like when Caesar, he was behind Caesar, which we now find that Flamenco thinks is these are all duplicates of Batu Khan,
Right.
the protege to Genghis Khan. They're two brothers, Georgi Danilovich and Ivan Danilovich, right?
I can't pronounce.
I only read these, so I know somebody who knows how these are pronounced are going nuts. I only see them in words.
It's hard. It's hard to read or speak a different language.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just
and
showing
so
you.
many things are not pronounced the way they're spelled. So that's
There's a lot of Brutus out there.
yeah,
I'm wondering which one made the Gothic cathedrals of London.
yeah. No, those are insane.
Yeah, the castles everywhere, all built with brick.
Well, they kind of hide that too. It's only when they're falling apart that you see their brick. They all have a kind of stone facade on them. So much of my life, I thought a lot of these buildings were stone, and you find out it's the same red brick.
Just covered in polymer, special concrete,
Yeah.
made
Um,
of liquid.
And there's also theories that maybe this brick was like kind of acted as a battery that was able to hold a charge. And what I posted some of the rebar stuff, people were commenting, no, that's wiring, how the power was distributed. If you're going to look at these buildings as power plants,
Yeah. Oh, what you posted today about the bamboo.
Oh, in the Alps.
Yes. What it was an iceberg,
It
not
was
an
it
ice.
was like a glacier. It was the Alps glacier that
Right.
receded.
Where did that come? Okay, that just kind of blows a whole bunch of other things right out of the water. That's an ultra lightweight cart, because of the
Hmm.
wheels. So that can't carry much, So yeah, our history, we have no idea really. And I think the next 10 years or so, we're gonna have a lot more answers.
I mean, what's great is like you could take flamenco's material, which is as extensive as it is. There's more to the story there.
Right.
I don't think flamenco. I've heard him actually kind of poop on the mud flood theory, but from what he explained to me, it doesn't seem like he understands it, or or maybe you hear the most extreme version of something and you're like, oh, that can't be
Right.
reality. Um,
So much, there's so
yeah.
much evidence of mud flood everywhere.
Oh, yeah, and especially in Russia. I think
Yeah.
Russia is ground zero. It's my particular theory that this came from I mean, I could be wrong about this, but that area around 1812, Napoleon's comet,
Mm.
um, all those wars, all those famines, that
I-
possibly that those floods could have come around that time.
Something annihilated society,
Yeah.
and yeah, you can blame wars, but um, maybe starvation, maybe, because when you have something like that, you might have what they call the nuclear winter,
Yeah.
several years of winter. And if you weren't prepared, you left. And then the mounds that we have everywhere.
Oh, in the United States, especially. Yeah.
Yeah. And supposedly there's tons of skeletons inside these or found in some of them. And even like the writings in the 1800s, they spoke about it.
There was tons. I find articles all the time that we found these 7, 8 feet skeletons, and
Yeah.
Smithsonian came to check them out, and that's the last year I heard about them.
Yeah. I love what Trump did. He just, I guess he took over or is allowing everyone to start reviewing the Smithsonian and all their libraries.
Put them online. Put them.
Please,
Yeah.
including the giants. There's way too many articles about giants and the pictures, the ancient drawings that we have.
And not only we have the personal story from Cliff High, who on his Substack, he did an audio podcast saying that
Right,
he had a relative that he didn't think would lie about this kind of stuff, and his job was to dump these giant bones off the coast,
right. Drop them off in the ocean.
which kind of inspires me a little bit because maybe those are still kind of there.
Well, the other idea then too is that I wonder how long he had that job. Was it 5 years? Was it that many giants? Was it 10? Was it two? You know, I'm gonna have to ask Cliff.
I know. I wish we would go a little deeper on that because I found
Yeah.
that fascinating.
Well, we're finding things out and just digging through. I love doing this, and this rabbit hole is so wide and so deep. It's hard to find an edge to climb back out of.
Yeah, that's something that I've been struggling with is trying to, you know, the minute you open one door, it leads you to another door, and it's kind of, uh, but to me, it's inspirational all around because all these fields, science, history, math, I mean, they're all having to go through this birthing process into a new age where the genie is out of the bottle, AI is here. There's a question of in terms of energy and how much energy is it going to take to sustain it, which in itself is going to drive innovation to hopefully, and that's where I think some of this antiquitech or this old technology that it was tied to this empire, this worldwide empire, is going to start coming back into play. And I kind of think of it in terms of like, how far could you take analog technology? Like how far could it really go to the point where it could achieve similar results to digital, but yet at the highest level of analog? Um, and I find that to be inspirational because now there are going to be people that are going to want to hang on to the old narratives, and they're gonna, and they probably don't even know why they're hanging on. They're just afraid to be in that limbo of knowledge where you're having to kind of reassess everything you were taught. I mean, when it comes to Troy, I think, and the timing of it, it really, to me, the interesting thing is obviously the birth of Jesus, and or Andronicus, King Andronicus, as Fomenko alludes to. But I mean, that's going to be the hardest pill to swallow, I think. And it's kind of a key point of uh, making sense of, especially when it comes to Troy, looking at it as they call it the Fourth Crusade. But it would make sense that Jesus was killed, and then the Crusades were the revenge for his murder.
Immediate.
Immediate revenge,
Yeah.
that they wouldn't wait, you know, 800 years or whatever, that to then all of a sudden, you know, attack Jerusalem and do that whole thing.
And
Uh,
that's the First World War, you know,
exactly.
the one that's not talked about. Why did they hide this? That's a rabbit hole I'd love to go down to. By all means.
And I think it's also the fact that, you know, now that we have these tools and everyone has access to them, I mean, the mainstream academia has got to be freaking out right now, across a lot of different fronts, because they no longer, they just can't present themselves as the arbiter of the truth. And they won't even debate you. They'll just slander you and call Fomenko a pseudoscientist. And they just, even Graham Hancock and guys like Randall Carlson and people like that are just piercing the narrative daily. It's amazing. And I'm super excited to see more and more people start to, dig in for themselves, and even if it's just picking a single data point out of Fomenko's work, and you could spend months and months just looking at that one data point, but it all kind of feeds into this bigger movement that's taking place right now. There's guys like John Levy, who he's very much, I find him to be fascinating guy, and he's starting to mention Tartaria and mention throw these words out, that it's kind of getting into the lexicon of our current age, and it's just an exciting time to be alive. I'm not really scared of AI. I don't really, I mean, although our jobs, we work as editors, and there is some drop off going on in our profession, but I think there's going to be new ways of working in this environment, and being able to compile information, present it in an entertaining way, and keep the ball going.
Well, I love what you're saying here about the attacks on academia, because they're happening in many different levels. Look at the defunding of the colleges happening right now because of the fixation of the lies and pushing um, motivated different motivations than what would be considered a community. How many careers are in racial bias? How many careers are this or that? But they give degrees for this. So that's being attacked as well. So academia is being looked at in all different angles and being challenged in all. So it is falling apart. It needs to, So I'm encouraged by all of that.
What are your thoughts on academia itself in terms of, will they eventually adapt, and will they kind of have a rebirth in terms of, being open to these ideas? And, I think Cliff talks about the ontology, and how, people are going to have to kind of like flip the paradigm in their heads.
Right.
And, it's a question of how long is that going to take,
Well,
um,
you're going to have people that are going to refuse no matter what. And right now we're seeing a lot of teachers that are not balanced, you know,
mm,
and yet we've got AI staring at us, and AI, I wonder what it would have been like as a child to have a computer and intelligence teaching me things. How much more could I have absorbed? How many different subjects could I have taken it from 6, 7 years old up to 19? And I'm thinking that the children of the future here that are going to be able to use this to educate, and the parents allowing the kids to educate themselves online or with an AI. I think we're going to have a lot more brain than ever before. So I'm encouraged by that. As far as academia is concerned, um, it made itself a stronghold of all the wrong things. And when we look at the history, like we're talking about Troy here and everything, no one's allowed to challenge your teacher, and if you do, you're going to get a bad grade. That kind of attitude and that kind of approach never really helped. But with AI teaching, I think we can enter a whole new world and also leave behind some things, and that's kind of scary too. Who wants to take AI and learn about farming? Or the things that support our society at the base level. So, I could see education, college educations in farming, because that will be necessary, and maybe utilizing Peter Proctor's one man, one cow, one planet idea of farming naturally. And he had ways of keeping bugs out of plants. He had ways of keeping animals away from these plants. And that can be taught. It can also be taught artificially as well, but maybe AI is the place to go.
It does make things easier for people, which is kind of good and bad because you do see the sort of the ADD kind of ramping up a little bit with just the scroll, even though we're on Excellent, just the I guess analysis paralysis by analysis kind of. So you're just it's so much that's sometimes I kind of wish to go back to the time of Jefferson and just had to sort of sit by the fire with a book.
Yeah,
These Grok and ChatGPT are, in my opinion, deeply flawed in certain ways, and you can't put full trust in them. They get
agreed.
dumb mistakes that sort of a child with ADD would not make sometimes,
Well, it'll only get better.
Yeah, I hope so.
I'm a little bit more trusting of some of it. We all go to doctors and they tell you what your problem is, high blood pressure, and then you go to, let's say, Grok, and you say, what was considered high blood pressure back in 1980? And it's a whole different ballgame. How about 1990? Right now, medical industry is pretty much being challenged everywhere as well. It's falling apart like academia. So I ask Grok these questions, what my doctor said, what would it be like in 80, 1990, and I get different answers. I'll tell you what, I feel a lot better about it, you know, because they seem to be narrowing the parameters. So, oh, you need to take this medication, you need to take this. And what is your doctor, or they even got television now saying, what does your doctor think about you having have it all? Since you don't have anything, you're poor, you've been struggling all your life, maybe you need have it all and your life will be better. And of course, you're calling a doctor. And this kind of game is being, brought out by AI, the way I see it. And I ask Grok, these questions based on the history of it. I kind of like what I'm reading and seeing, but I do know there are flaws.
Yeah, I guess my fear is that there's going to be a sort of a monolithic AI, almost like just whatever the top searches in Google are kind of were pushed as the truth. You
Right.
know, yeah, as an open platform, and I'm kind of interested in sort of decentralized
Yeah.
AIs and stuff, but I'm afraid it's just going to reflect the biases that the people creating the AI want out there too. It's sort of like a rebranding of the kind of propaganda that we've been exposed to. So to me, it's like a double-edged sword, and it's something to always be on the lookout for. I mean, what
Right.
if your doctor just looks at the AI to
Yeah.
diagnose you?
Right. Right. It sounds like 2001 Space Odyssey. Hello,
Yeah.
Dave. It's like, you hate to have that kind of a response back to
Yeah, and
you.
like, how do you refute that? It's the AI. I mean, I always kind of think about what if it's used in the justice system because the jury system's got a it's like it's a very old system and like well
Yeah.
maybe and there's a lot of biased judges which I've found out personally in my own life. Um, so would it be better to have AI weigh in that? Well, what if AI just is wrong and but everybody just believes it in a
Wow.
way in that kind of powerful context?
Okay, Cliff had brought something up about that. AI, well, I think a long time ago in the Alta reports, it talked about all these lawyers leaving DC, and then maybe utilizing AI to go through all the different cases that have happened.
Yeah,
So,
that is objective. Like that is there's if it has a database of every court case
yeah.
and it could pull it out faster than any human and can, that's amazing. That is the promise of AI and stuff. I liked what Cliff said about an AI lie detector. I think that actually needs to be
Whew.
right on the. We
And
need that. We need that yesterday.
then AI lie detectors will be manipulated, right?
Yeah.
We, I can understand it, it'd be an ongoing fear, but that is mankind, right? We always doubt our things, what we see. Some of us do. Some of us take it and believe it, and that's like mankind,
Yeah. It's a reflection of us, good and bad in a way, as I see.
right?
Yeah.
Right. And
I,
if we,
I think we are the AI. I think we're the ultimate representation of AI as a biologic. Just considering someone made a interesting, I think it was Avi Loeb was talking about Three Eye Atlas, and but he mentioned something about the amount of power the brain requires to operate. You know that it's like 100 watts or something, and it's like AI has not, I mean, AI requires, these massive data centers and this massive amount of energy. And here we are, a human that can keep our brain functioning, our body functioning with such a small amount of electricity. And I found that to be, when you think about what's the evolution of AI, well, in a way, it's kind of like a biologic that is low voltage that has this immense compute power. And we know we use a fraction of our compute power in our brain, but it's run on such a low voltage. I mean, I find that to be, wouldn't that be the apex of design if you could design an AI that doesn't need a data center, it just needs 100 watts but can still generate,
that'd be us, right?
Yeah, it would be us.
And if
Um,
we can if we find a way to connect, what do you call that?
like
We're,
telekinesis
yeah, but still, I mean, utilizing our thoughts to find out what the truth might be. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's exciting. As it relates to Troy, I just wanted to ask, so in your estimation, Troy is essentially like the first World War, or not a World War, but well, I guess we could call it World War One. I mean, for our purposes.
Could be.
Because I kind of look at World War, I've been working on a documentary around World War II recently, and World War One and World War II just kind of rolled right into each other. And I kind of now I'm looking at World War One and Two as being really World War II,
Right.
altogether. And a lot of people are talking about, oh, we're in World War III right now, but I don't necessarily, I don't know if that's the case. It is interesting though with Ukraine, and you have people saying, "Oh, well, we're not Russian, we're not part of Russia," and it's like, come on, guys, like seriously, like here's you want to look at the maps and tell me that you weren't part of this. You try to explain that you were part of the Rus, this much bigger empire, and it's interesting how China and Russia are coming together, and obviously they are deeply connected through Tartaria, and and it's hard to debunk these maps. That's the thing. I mean, people can say, well, they didn't know, the map makers, it's their bias, but I don't know. There's just it's interesting. It's interesting.
So I
Okay.
see what you brought up right here,
Yeah,
JB.
you brought up the question about Troy. Now okay, this is where it says it won't fit, it's not plausible, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And let me put in that magic point here.
You have to trick it to admitting it without specifically saying.
Right, exactly, exactly. So let me get this out. Yeah, okay, so now Troy, Constantinople, Tsargrad, that's the word. Phoenician fleet. Okay, so logistics. Okay, acreage and logistics. Constantinople, 1205, 1204, 3,450 acres inside the Theodosian wall. Exactly the scale needed for 50,000 plus defenders. Food supply. Thrace, Black Sea, grain fleets, real 200,000 plus acres hinterland, matching our earlier 220,000 acre estimate. Yes, Constantinople is the real Troy. Using Fomenko's, everything fits. And I don't, well, I know he might have done the challenging of the acres and everything, right? Yeah, I'm certain he did. But this,
Yeah.
right before our eyes.
So to go back to Flamenco, his whole thing is how ancient history is medieval history. So what we think of Hellenistic Greece was going up until pretty much the Ottoman Empire. And these ruins where Troy is part of these towns along the coast there that were destroyed by the Ottoman Empire pretty much,
Right, right,
which was formed a lot to wipe this out because it was these people were kind of like bacchanalian, spreading a lot of plagues and stuff, and there was a shift in the 1400s, and what was created in the early medieval was now seen as a detriment, and it was wiped out.
right, right,
Yeah.
right. The ships. That brings up, we just celebrated Columbus Day.
Yeah, it's for me, it's amazing that you could even debunk that Columbus exists, but flamenco does do that as well. And yes, and I believe you posted the West Edmonton Mall in Canada with their recreation.
Yeah,
A very familiar symbol on the sale there. I
and
remember
those
I
the
remember the Columbus movies from the early 90s. I don't think I saw that on the sales
you were
there.
there.
No, I don't think it was. I don't think they had the eagle on it. It was like everything I've seen of Columbus in a history book is just like the red
Oh
cross.
yeah,
And
and
the fact the name, the Christopher Columbus, it basically the different ways it was written in documents pretty much translates to Christian colonizer, Christian crusader.
we're the last Tatarian fleet to leave.
Yeah, and
You know,
it's kind of funny. I have a sort of personal story about this too. So I knew this couple, and they love Spain, and they got married at the Royal Palace in Seville. And one of the royal family was loved their wedding so much because they brought this like a famous Spanish singer that they gave them a tour of the Royal Library in Seville. And these were not conspiracy people at all, like very normies. And they're like, we were shown documents saying that they knew America was there long before Columbus.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so there, as far as
Gives me chills.
yeah, as far as
Yeah.
there's no books on him. Where he was born.
Yeah.
There's no information on the man himself, except for he had a fascination with Queen Elizabeth, or
And I guess one thing Flamenco brings like that we're told that he was in the history in the official history, Tartary was much more common use, so he was looking for the Khan of Tartary, is what we're told, right? But he
right,
didn't bring anything to barter with. He didn't bring gold. He didn't bring prizes. So that story kind of gets blown up as far as with Flamenco.
right,
Like he
right.
knew he was just whoever it was, they knew they were colonizing a new land and not necessarily looking for Asia.
I wonder how many ships actually went.
Probably a
They
lot
said,
more.
yeah, they said three and they lost one. I don't know if that's a variance of maybe 3,000 and they lost 1,000 or something like that.
Mm.
I don't know. But I do know that we had commerce that was so huge before that time period. When you match the buildings Chichen Itza, uh, further south, the Aztecs, the pyramids and such, they all had the pictures of, not all of them, some had pictures of elephants, which are not prominent in South America at all. And even up in northern, I guess in the Canada lands, they had other drawings on buildings, et cetera, et cetera. Going back into India, going back into Tartaria, you know, it's not by chance that these people could all be thinking at the same time using polymers or not chisels to come up with these designs that that were from animals on the other side of the planet.
Yeah, how is that possible?
Yeah, only by commerce.
Yeah.
Only by commerce. And the same when we talk about the buildings that have fallen that have the barb on the inside. These things are supposed to be 1,000 years old. And so we're talking an infrastructure, a global infrastructure like we have now that's been hidden from us. Of course, if you don't believe that, then we came out of caves and we slowly created clothing and spears and this and that. I'm sorry, all of that's just gone for me when it comes to what we can challenge now with commerce, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and one thing I find interesting is like I'm kind of fascinated, and Flamenco doesn't go too far in it, but who these early cons were in a way, because he says like that they're basically the duplicates of what history says the Mongol cons and stuff, but they believed in by decree that the world belonged to them, and like even the Greek, the pantheon of gods are based off these royal khans, and they believe they were bloodline relatives of Jesus. This is the sort of the Bacchanalian royal Christianity that was at odds with Orthodox.
Right.
But they must have had a talent or something that was they were able to consolidate these kingdoms and wash over the world. So I wonder what that is, how they developed that, and maybe if it came from something before that they were privy to, that they knew how to do this. Were they humans like us? Because you do see a lot of giant depictions of these people.
Are these what would be the descendants of the Atlanteans? I mean, is that
That's kind of what I'm wondering about. And Cliff talks about the Naked Bible and the Elohim as a
Yeah.
council, as many of these very tall beings that didn't look at us little guys too favorably. And there was a protocol for interacting with them. You had to do oils and
anointment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Mauro Biglino, Cliff brought up Mauro Biglino and his books about the El and Elohim. Those are great reads. They destroy, they basically remove the word of God and replace it with something else. So, and that's a hard pill to swallow for, people of faith. And I can respect that,
Yeah.
But the other side is it changes the whole meaning of what the Bible talks about. When they talk about Goliath, David and Goliath, they mention inside there that Goliath had a father and two brothers. I think a father and two brothers, and they too were giants.
I mean, talk about respecting the religion. The Bible is filled with references to giants, and we're just kind of shifting the timeline a little bit, moving these guys up to more recent times. And
right, and so there is a lot of truth in the Bible.
Yeah,
and when it comes to Christ's teachings, I find no flaw in what he says.
It's not dismantling the theology. It's just how it went down and who. I mean, we're kind of the victims of this game of telephone over many centuries, I guess.
Yeah, when you read the book of Thomas, those are Christ's words, and they're deep. They're they're very deep. So there is a lot of truth in it and everything, but then there's also this facade.
Yeah.
And from what Fomemko, I think what he had talked about is that Islam and the Israeli faith came second. It came after Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I'm not stuck on that. Since I've checked a lot of Fomenko's stuff out and he's been accurate, I can't really say no. But it's something I need to dig into more.
Well, it's interesting that I guess some of the German royal armor had Arabic inscriptions on it.
Or Turkish,
Yeah, whatever it originated
whatever.
from.
Yeah, I've got a collection. I got a rather large collection of different types of Bibles and such. Um, and I find it kind of interesting. Kind of. I don't know why I have so many, but the point being is that I think I have a little bit more of an understanding about bibliology than people that live off of the talking of it. And to challenge even what Fomemko had brought up, utilizing scientific data, the total eclipse and the Star of David, which might have been the Crab Nebula when it was forming, and that there's only one time that that can happen on the planet.
Hmm.
That got me, and
Yeah,
that will bring up the past of Christ up to where the Crusades are,
Mhm.
being right on time.
it's hard. It's hard data, and
Yeah,
this star was. They say 2,000 years ago, but also the star was the Middle Ages too.
yeah.
It's in the official history. It's appearing in the Middle Ages.
And then that eclipse, or no, in Constantinople, that got my attention too, and it brought forward the idea that Christ was middle age, Andronicus. He was a king, obviously rich. I mean, three wise men,
Hmm.
two wise men and a queen, came to his birthplace, gave him treasures. I don't see Joseph and Mary leaving that behind.
Yeah, it's kind of a stretch to think that he was not a royal or from a family of nobility when this stuff was key. I
Right,
mean, any other kind of history, you don't really hear about carpenters or peasants, what they're,
Fisherman.
yeah, you
right,
don't hear about it.
right,
You only hear the story of of the royalty.
right, right. And that's all that was ever written about in those days
Yeah,
was royalties. It's never been about some poor guy, you know. This might have been the first, don't get me wrong,
we'll leave that open.
but he was a king. And Herod was scared of this king getting so much power. So I guess it's really how you look at the language.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, do you think that like, the kind of contention over Crimea is really maybe that's why there's so much contention over that specific area is that, you know, there this knowledge and this idea of Cape Violent or Violent where, the cave where, it's said that this is where he was born. And that's why there's so much, we're being told it's, over the resources and the this and the that. But I suspect that there's a certain sect of people that are really fighting over this because of the fact that it is potentially the birthplace of Christ.
I think so too. There's I can't I can't answer why Crimea is such a focus and has been,
Hmm.
you know, except for the fact that this might be where Andronicus ruled.
Hmm.
And there was the starting of the fight, the great fight that took on the world. You know, yeah, I can't answer that. It's a deep question, Scott. I cannot. Um, I believe like you what you believe. There's something about Crimea that needs to be answered, and I'm hoping. Yeah, I do think that it is the main focus. The Danube goes down there. The lost tribes of Israel
Hmm.
in that area. Possibly where Moses had taken his army. I mean, hey, 400,000 people, men, women, children. That's an army. You know,
yeah, and he didn't take 40 years to wander Sinai, right?
right. And I don't know about manna, but what Fomenko had spoken about people living off the land up in that neck of the woods is very possible, very probable.
And one thing to mention is that the deserts up until recently did not mean arid,
Right.
dry land. It was just
Less
unpopulated.
populated.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
you have northern Russia labeled as desert. You have South America, Amazon labeled as desert on maps.
Right, right. Exactly. So it's interpretation of the language.
Yeah.
When
Even India, even the word India did not mean the country.
Oh, I meant distance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there were so many Indias.
We could go on forever. Rome, what that really meant, what Jerusalem really meant.
How many Jerusalems were there? Names of towns. Shall we ask?
Ask Rock. Let's see what it says. Let's see what it says.
My spelling is horrendous.
I've asked Grok so many times because I'm looking at sort of the documents that mention things. I'm like, what's the first document to talk about Brutus, right? Like, what's the oldest? It'll give you something. Oh, it's the 4th century. I'm like, well, link me to the 4th century manuscript. And he's like, no, no, no. Then it's like, oh, my mistake. It was mentioned in the 1100s. I'm like, okay, link me to the 1100 manuscript. It'll give you all these broken links. Then I'm like, these links are broken. Please try again. Then it'll give you another one, and it's a book from the 1700s. Like
it's that bot stuff you guys found
yeah.
that really helps me out.
Yeah.
Okay, so 3 Jerusalems on a new chronology map. Scalarian Phantom, Biblical Jerusalem, Crusader Jerusalem, Roman Jerusalem. Oh, there's got to be more.
Well, I do have a map with a Jerusalem by Moscow.
I think Tsargrad had the Tower of Babel.
Okay.
Which was basically it was a bell tower. If I recall.
I think he connects that to the one in the Kremlin. The bell tower of Ivan the Terrible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Short answer. There's only one Jerusalem, Constantinople.
And it's kind of to the point is that the Crusaders were told that Jerusalem to them was the center of the world, but Constantinople, this sort of bridge between the East and the West, and also from the North to the South, because it was access to the Mediterranean for a lot of the river networks going through Europe and stuff. So it was this geographical spot that's just perfect to control trade coming from the East, the West, the North, the South. So it does fit the center of the world motif much better.
Oh, Jerusalem, Constantinople, Troy. Chapter of Book 1, Chapter 7. God, I love this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys create that Fomenko bot?
I did not create that. It was shared with me and I reposted it.
Whoever that person is, thank you.
The hive mind is definitely in effect.
Well, it's great that a bunch of us who are kind of hip to this are coming together and sharing.
Yeah, I feel that there's definitely a cross-pollination happening between different, there's a lot of channels coming out. There's the word itself, Tartaria, is becoming part of the zeitgeist right now. And it's due to the fact of people like you, people like us, many people around the world that are tapping into this, and it's an endless bounty of amazing. It's revelatory, like you can jump into a chapter of Fomenko and it just opens up if you're curious. It's really made for curiosity. It's you have to be curious, and I think that's the exciting part about what's happening right now is AI is a tool for curious people that we've never seen before, and it's amazing. So for you, what's on your plate when it comes to like what's the next path that you're interested in going down, and when it comes to Fomenko and his associated ideas?
Wow. Can you narrow that?
Yeah.
That's okay. As far as Fomenko, I'm still highly interested in the clothing. We see the ancient clothing of the Khans and they match the British royalty. They also match the French and the Spanish. So, was there a clothier company that did that artistic type of work? I don't have answers for that, but once again, it goes to the commerce, the idea of commerce. I do not believe that the king of England or the king of Spain or France, um, king was the name of like a governor by the Tatarians, and so when Tataria fell apart, they just kept what they owned and they used force to keep it there, to keep their power. And here we are today. So I'm curious about their dress, who manufactured, how they did that, because that might have some answers to it. As far as where the Khans and the people that became Tataria came from is unanswered, and that has to be another subject beyond Fememco that maybe we can figure out later on. Hey, maybe AI Atlas, it's got a bunch of humanoids on it waving at us, as that would really mess up a lot of people.
I know. I think we've been inculcated, because we've been diving into flamenco and alternative history and everything from even beyond that, like you're saying, like the Nephilim and the Anunnaki, and I
Mm.
mean, going back to ancient aliens, and I'm excited for this Three Eye Atlas, whether it's just an interstellar rock flying through our neighborhood is cool, whether it's some type of mothership that's going to launch little droids down to, rovers to check us out, or there's even speculation that, that the droids have been here for a long time, and maybe they're going to come out of the ocean and return to the ship, and
Oh man,
you
that would
know
be so cool.
I think there's definitely a lot of mystery in our ocean, and I kind of like that one. That's the one I've been on lately, is this idea that there's some type of technology or ET presence in our oceans. And
Well, I heard Google censored that thing off Malibu. We're kind of near the Malibu area, and there's this legendary supposed underwater base. This kind of
Yeah.
thing. You used to be able to see it on Google Earth, this big flat thing, flat oval thing, and I think they just recently blurred that out.
yeah, there was some type of structure, some type of entrance, and it happens to be there's a naval base. There's a big and it have and it that naval base just recently became was taken over by Space Force, which is very interesting as well. That this it
Wow.
happens to be that this and there's a deep submarine channel out there. That's I think it's about 8 to 1,200 feet deep in areas, but it funnels right into this naval base. And as you're going in, there's this structure that you could see about maybe 3 or 4 years ago. It had kind of come out into the webosphere, and then it just recently, and within the last 6 months or so, they blurred it out again. So, but I do some hiking in the local mountains, and I always look out that direction, just fingers crossed, like, come on, I want to see the ship come up, and my wife looks at me like I'm insane, and but it's okay. I mean, there's giants. I even we were talking about giants, but a couple guys did a really good video on the giants of Catalina Island, which is just right off the coast, and the local uh, the native people were very small. They were like almost like pygmy size people, and they would work. They said like one day these tall red bearded blue-eyed strangers showed up, and of course they thought, well, these are the gods, and they ended up kind of protecting the natives on this island, and and that's when Wrigley ended up purchasing Catalina, Wrigley from Wrigley Gum and Wrigley Field, and he purchased it, and he hired an archaeologist to go and start digging around, and he found I believe it was like over an 8 foot
I
skeleton.
have a photo of it.
Yeah. And of course, people say, "Oh, this is a hoax. This is a hoax," and da da da. And I'm just like, I don't. It's. what is the purpose of hoaxing that? I mean, I don't know, but
That picture was hanging in their museum for a bit because
mm,
there was a time where the newspapers would print articles up this up until the 20s and 30s.
Right. And when you want to look at when you consider hoaxes, right, that is simply one hoax in about 20,000 other hoaxes that people have photographs of showing proof that there's 8 foot, 10 foot, 12 foot giants. So after a while, all the hoaxes become fact. It could be argued as that. And I love your idea. I get up every morning and I'm up about 4 o'clock and I go outside and I'm looking up because will I see AI Atlas? Will something pop down? Will I see something going up to it? I have the same idea of being able to see it. And plus, Cliff said he expected me to see it, or not AI Atlas, but he expected me to see something because I'm in Arizona and
mm.
high altitude. So,
Well,
this,
it's interesting too, Trump just came out saying we're going to resume nuclear tests. And there's obviously a well-documented presence of anomalous vehicles, a UAP, a UFO, whatever you want to call them, at or during nuclear testing facilities.
yeah.
And I'm curious if he's getting ahead of it could be that he's getting ahead of maybe the story a bit, meaning either like it's a chicken or the egg. Did the or the new did the is it the testing itself that draws these things in, or is it the things themselves kind of is the testing just used as a front to either to explain or maybe interface with these objects. So wild,
It's,
man, wild
yeah.
times.
I look forward to tomorrows, all the tomorrows.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
yeah, because there's unanswerable questions not only of our past but also in the future here. And there was a Google thing I recall where someone had located an object that was miles in diameter, scraping the floor bottom of the ocean and had a trail.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's not us, is it? And if it is, why be so secretive? But yeah, there's a lot of unanswerable questions in the ocean. And I think what we had when we had our ice age, the mini ice age, the ocean levels were much smaller. So there's a lot to be discovered that has yet to be discovered.
Just civilization wise, I think too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. So the past meets the present, and we're all fucked up.
We're going to definitely reconvene and we're going to take obviously our conversation and if you whenever you want to get together we'll make time and I think it's important that we all kind of keep contributing to the discussion, whether it's on flamenco or the lost books of the Bible, the idea of the Nephilim, the Anunnaki. All these things are going to be explored with these tools now, and I think that's the exciting part for me and James as well, is just being on the cusp of this expanding knowledge set that is coming out. Thanks to guys like you, thanks to guys like Cliff, John Levy. There's just so many, even Randall Carlson, and they're the research that Graham and Randall have been doing on the Younger Dryas and the flood and the all this stuff is kind of converging into a totally different picture of our past. And then if we have a picture, a more succinct view of our past, then we can really kind of look at to our future and where we're headed. So
Yeah.
with optimism, there's so much doom and gloom, and even Bill Gates just came out recently, and the granddaddy of doom and gloom, and
Yeah.
the they saying, "Oh yeah, don't worry, climate change. It's really it's not
I wonder what Al
cow
Gore,
farts might have been a bridge too far to go. It's
I
like,
wonder what Al Gore thinks now.
oh yeah,
because he's been
Yeah.
pimping that stuff for so. Well, I can't tell you how many people have been pimping the doom and gloom. It's our fault. And yet, even when we had that COVID scare, right? People stopped driving and the CO2 levels were
Mhm.
collapsing. And it's like, this planet can absorb far much more. If we just had truth in our science, truth in everything we have, we'd be better off. But this idea of fear and gloom, fear and doom, I'm tired of it. You
Yeah.
know, I think a
Yeah.
lot of people are. You know,
Yeah. I mean, it's good to be skeptical. It's good to be, there's a certain amount of paranoia that is healthy, I think, as Cliff calls himself. I forgot his terminology, but being kind of, there's a certain amount of paranoia you need to make good decisions and see things, patterns develop.
right? Agreed.
Uh, but I think, AI is it's definitely going to change our world and in great ways and maybe not so great ways. But isn't that the case with all technology? That a hammer is a hammer and it can be used to build a house or you can crack someone in the skull with it. So
Right.
that's how I kind of look at AI is it really comes down to, you know, the ability to access information like never before. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Thank you, JB, for being with us today.
Yeah,
And
thank you, JB.
Okay.
Where can we see you on X? It's JB underscore Slear, SLEAR.
SLEA.
Yeah,
Oh,
give
Jeremiah,
JB a follow, guys.
guys, I can't. I'm more honored to talk with you than anything. We know the same subjects. We also know Cliff High. And to be able to talk to somebody about him and the crazy stuff that he finds that wind up being factual, I'm comforted, truly comforted. And I thank you guys too very much.
No, we're the same way. We feel the same way too.
Outstanding.
All right, JB.
take care.
It's a pleasure, guys. Take care.